All right, all right. Welcome and happy Tuesday, everyone. Super excited. My name is Odessa Jenkins. I am the president of Emtrain, and I'm really excited to be bringing you a special conversation about flexible work weeks, 4 day weekdays, work weeks, and single parenthood. More importantly, I'm here with Joe Sanok, an amazing I would say, pioneer in the study of the 4 day work week. But more importantly, he is an advocate for people using their time the way that they want to and taking advantage of all the time that you have in your life. I'm super excited to be with you here, Joe. Welcome.
Odessa, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and your audience.
Oh, I couldn't ask for someone who's gonna make a brighter discussion. So Joe, let's jump right into it because I think most of the people who are joining this conversation are either considering a more flexible work week, have heard about the 4 day work week, and everyone's always intrigued about how it will impact their workforce. But I think the first place that I want to start with you is how you got here, because I think these kind of what people call movements are always personal in the way that they start. So let's talk more about how you got here and why you are a human who thinks that it's important that you own your time the way you do.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes in your career, there's stepping stones and you're going to that next thing. And sometimes you kind of return home. And I
Yeah.
remember my freshman orientation at college. I'm a senior in high school, just graduated. I go off for orientation and sit down with an academic advisor and a handful of other students. And she says, "All right, we're going to make your schedule for the fall." And I raised my hand right away and said, "Do I have to go to class on Friday?" And she's like, "No, this is college. Do whatever you want." So through all of undergrad and grad school, I never had a class on Friday except for once. And for me, that worked so well because Friday became a regrouping day, a day that I could, maybe go grocery shopping or recover from Thursday night or whatever. It was a longer weekend to just get things done. So when I, finished graduate school, my very first job, I negotiated a 4 day work week and just thought, that negotiation like that was normal. That was something I had lived for almost 10 years. And so going into it, of course, I eventually joined the 40-hour work week, and then had a side hustle, and quickly it became a 55-hour work week. And then in 2015, when I left my full-time job, I realized with my side business that had grown enough to sustain me outside of that, that I could again go back to that 4 day work week. And so for a summer in 2015, I said, I'm going to just do an experiment this summer. I'm going to see if I can do 4 days a week and do as well as I used to do. And June of 2015 was the single best month my company had had. July was even better than that, and August was better than that. And that became a permanent fixture in how I and my team run our lives.
That's amazing. It's becoming a fixture of the way we run our lives at Mtrain as well. You and I talked a little bit about this in our 4 day work week pilot that's going really well. Before we jumped out and decided that this was the right thing to experiment for our workforce, we really did our research and looked back at how things have changed historically in the workplace and how most of us aren't keeping up. You wrote a whole book about it, right? So tell me, let's talk about the history and some of the signs that you've studied over time that have shown that we've made a societal shift, but our actions aren't aligning with that. Because I think there are a lot of leaders, workforce leaders, company leaders that are listening right now saying, why would I do that? For me as a more traditional company, those who aren't in startup environments like what we are in at Mtrain, what historical sort of importance do you think the 4 day work week has brought into us today, and why do you think it's important for everyone, big or small companies, to listen and make this change?
Well, I love that you start with the history because oftentimes when we talk about subjects, we don't ask ourselves first and foremost, are the things that we view as solid or foundational or even historical, are they true? And so if we don't ask that question first, we make assumptions moving forward that the things that we think are solid are solid. And so even if we just zoom back several thousand years to the Babylonians were the people that gave us the 7 day week. They looked up in the sky and they saw the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus. They looked down and saw Earth, and then they saw Mars and Jupiter. So they said, we should have 7 days. There's absolutely nothing in nature that points to a 7 day week. A year makes sense. It's how long it takes us to go around the sun. Our months make sense. It's loosely connected to our lunar cycles. Days make sense. The sun goes up and goes down. But we could just as easily have 73 weeks that were 5 days long each. So if we just start with this thing that we hold true, the 7 day week, is completely made up by the Babylonians. The Egyptians had an 8 day week. The Romans had a 10 day week. If they had better astronomers, we would probably have longer weeks. So the week is completely made up. So then let's fast forward to the 1800s. The average person was working 10 to 14 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. So they were on a farmer's schedule, whether or not they were a farmer. And so they were just working all the time. And so in 1926, when Henry Ford says, I'm going to give people a weekend, he started that because he wanted to sell more cars. He wanted to sell cars to his own employees because he knew if people had a weekend to go into, they'd be more likely to want to leave work quickly, go do things, and then come back. And it worked. And so we see that, from the 1926 on, we start to see laws start to shift and changes. So when we think about this, quote, historical 40-hour work week, we're talking just a couple generations. I mean, the World War II generation, they were the first generation that experienced a 40-hour work week. Their parents were working way more than that. So that means the baby boomers were the first kids raised by people that were working a 40-hour work week, which means my generation, I'm, young Gen X, and millennials, older millennials, like we are only the second generation being raised by 40-hour work week people. And so this thing that we thought was so true, it's less than 100 years old. And so we've gone through this process before where in 1926, we shifted away from 6 to 7 days a week to 40 hours. This has happened before. We've seen it be disruptive, and we've seen it be better for creativity and innovation and productivity.
Oh, okay. So let's start there, because this was the moment that you and I talked about as we were preparing for this. As a business operator, as someone who has always worked in an environment where you couldn't have waste, where you had to align to certain financial metrics, and you had to grow a company in an agile way, but also where you had to see where every piece of work that was being done in your company resulted in a financial and a productive outcome. And so as I read the book, I was thinking, like, this all is really nice, but when it comes to, am I doing and getting the most out of my people? Am I building, to your point, a hustle culture? For us, a GSD culture, a get stuff done culture. How could that and would that be challenged if I moved a workday away? We're seeing that that's actually making our employee base look forward to the work week and not forward to the weekend. But I'm still, admittedly, as a business leader, trying to work through my hustle culture in my head. I told you I almost wore my hustle hoodie today. So let's focus deep down on creativity and productivity, because this is the point of the 4-day work week that is always challenged. More time equals more stuff. More money equals more stuff. More time equals more money, more that's just always been the traditional thought pattern. That's what our business metrics actually tell us. And so let's dig a little deeper on this concept that having less time doing the thing might make you more productive and creative.
Yeah, so there's actually a handful of concepts that the neuroscience talks about, but we also see case study after case study showing this. Even just yesterday, I was reading Michael Pollan's new book, This Is Your Brain on Plants, and he was talking about caffeine and how when the first coffee breaks started, in the 1930s, like this isn't that long ago, 1930s coffee breaks start, that they found that 2 15-minute breaks actually made people even more productive than, the people that were just hustling and breaking through. And so we see little stories like that peppered through history where when you back off and say, what really should I be working on? You actually get more done. So there's this idea of Parkinson's law that a lot of people have heard of, but there's actually two sides of it. First is that work will expand to the time given. And so think about back in college, you had a paper that was due in 3 or 4 weeks. How long does it take you to write that paper? 3 or 4 weeks. Now, maybe you realize I have a paper due tomorrow. crap, you get that paper done. It may not be A plus quality, but you get it done. And so oftentimes in the business world, we see this tension between speed and accuracy. And traditionally, when we have an industrialist mindset that thinks of people and businesses as machines, we go on the quality accuracy side. And so we want everything to be perfect. We want that robot to kick it out at 100% productivity all the time with the same exact model. But what we're seeing as we shift away from that industrialist mindset is that speed actually can get more done in a shorter period of time because you're not overthinking it. You're not being paralyzed by perfection. You're allowing creativity to come in. And so within that idea of Parkinson's law, work expands to the time given. The other side is that he noticed some natural bloating within companies. And so when you start to step back, the thing that happens, even in my own life, I have a smaller 20-person company. If I say I'm only working 3 or 4 days a week, do I work on the best 10 or 20 things in a week or the worst 10 or 20? I work on the best. And so that means I'm naturally starting to cut out the things that really don't matter to the bottom line. So, if I have a new podcast sponsor come through and they haven't paid their bill and somehow I have to sign off on something, I'm going to sign off on that because I want the money. Whereas there might be some email follow-up that I don't put time into. So it naturally starts to reveal where is the waste in the company or where is the waste for that individual role? Because it may be that, for you to spend 2 hours a day checking your email as a top level C-suite person, probably not the best use of your time. You should probably have an executive assistant that goes through your email, texts you when you have the top 5 emails, and then you go in for 10 minutes, just rock out those emails, and then that person responds on your behalf. So that natural selection of being able to work on your very best work happens. And then lastly, when we allow our brains to relax, that's when creativity comes up. That's when different parts of our brains are able to talk to one another. When we're stressed out and maxed out and just spending too much time working, we go with what we know best, not what is best, but what we know best. And so you think about when are your best ideas, your aha moments. It's never, boy, I was so stressed out at work and I was on 5 meetings in a row that were so long. It's like, no, I was taking a shower. I was out for a run. I went for a drive and turned off the radio. I was on a hike. I was out to coffee with a friend and it connected in my brain. Those are the moments that our brains feel safer. They allow different parts of the brains to talk to one another, and then those creative ideas rise to the surface.
Yeah, I love that. As I was preparing for this, I thought about how can, there's always been this anxiety about relaxing and taking your time and stepping back because we are all limited by time. It's the most valuable thing that we have. But I think what we've learned in Emtrain, and even with others that I speak with, there's one of my CEO that I work with who's doing 4-day work. We've been doing it actually for 2 years in his startup. And the thing that he said is that we're more intentional about our time. So it's not it's relax and go hard. It's relax and go smart. And so let's forward to that go smart period, because I think you talked about sprint types in the book, and I think it's really important that those listening understand that you're not talking about a lazy culture. You're talking about you are talking about a culture of GSD, right?
Yeah. And on one side, we're saying get stuff done. And on the other side, I'd say go slow down, the GSD on both sides. So, the book is broken up into 3 different parts. And the first part is all about our internal inclination. So how to set up our insides so they're prepared. The second part is all around slowing down. And then the last part is all around killing it. And so when you are showing up, this isn't just, I'm going to stroll into the office, still do a coffee break. I'm going to get as much done in every moment. Every minute that I spend working on my business or, wasting the time of the people that work with me on this business is time away from our families. It's away from our friends, away from our hobbies. So every minute needs to be me running full tilt when I'm here. And so understanding our sprint types is one of the most important lessons people can learn. So similar to our personality types, it could be your Enneagram, if you're an INFJ in the Myers-Briggs or something like that, INFJ, not G, there's no G in it. To be able to understand your sprint type then allows you to know how when you're going to kill it, you can do that best. So there's two different areas of your sprint type. The first is what type of work you're going to do. And the second part is when do you do that? And so when we think about what type of work you're going to do, there's time block sprinters and there's task switch sprinters. So a time block sprinter is someone that says, I'm only going to work on this one task for 2 to 4 hours of time, broken up into 20 to 30-minute segments. So for example, when I was writing Thursday is the New Friday, every single Thursday, I just worked on the book. It could have been research, it could have been whiteboarding, it could have been writing, it could have been, doing interviews with people about it, but it was all around the book. So that would have been me being a time block sprinter. Whereas a task switch sprinter is someone that needs variety. And a lot of times we've heard batching and things like that. And people that are naturally a task switcher feel like, well, this isn't for me. I'm not a sprinter, because they just don't know their sprint type. And so these are people that need variety. Now, it's not multitasking. Research has shown that that's a myth, that you do not get more done when you're multitasking. This is saying intentionally, I'm going to work on different high-level tasks. So it might be, I know that I need to do, an Instagram live for the company that's talking about high level things. Or it might be I need to go into Slack with a particular marketing team and just rock that out for 20 minutes, setting timers so that every 20 minutes you're making it stop in your brain and saying, okay, let's switch. So finding those high level tasks, but having that variety. So what type of work we do is the first part. And then the second part is when we do it. And so an automated sprinter is someone that's going to automate it every single week. So every Thursday, I'm going to work on writing this book. So it's just going to be on repeat, block out my schedule. No one can schedule anything in there. My assistant knows, do not disrupt that time. I'm working on the book. Whereas an intensive sprinter is somebody that's going to go away for that work. So it may be that you're going to shut your office door for 2 days and you just, do it there. Maybe it's that you're going to rent an Airbnb and you're going to just kill it for that weekend, that you need to get away. And so a lot of people need to have the distractions of the office or home taken away to get some of that high level work done. So then if you go away, you're going to decide, am I going to be a task switcher there? Or am I going to be a time block sprinter? And so you may go away and you're saying, for these 2 days, I'm only working on our marketing plan for the entire year and our budget and everything marketing. Or it may be, I'm going to work on a variety of tasks. So once you're able to nail what type of sprinter you are deep down inside, it helps you then be able to do that work differently. Now, different tasks may require different approaches to sprinting, but each of us has our particular type of sprinting that we naturally go towards.
I love that. I think the biggest takeaways that I'm hoping business leaders, HR leaders, employees, functional leaders are hearing is, one, to assess and listen. I think that was the easiest part of the decision for us here at Emtrain, is that our employee base was clearly telling us, we are the type of people who can make good decisions more autonomously. We are the type of people who care about what we're doing here, but we all learn and work differently. The other thing is that we were wasting time. We were wasting time in meetings. We were wasting time in email. We were wasting time in Slack. And as business leaders, we have to step back and find out how to eliminate waste, but also how to take advantage of that waste with different times. And so the listening part of this, I think, is something that we try to build into our products, into our training products, into our data products. And then also, a lot of what you're talking about involves we, not just I, together in the workplace. And we've developed some competencies around what we call pro-social behaviors, which is all about how we interact together. As we get to, and I'm sure we want to get to questions in the last part of this, but how do you identify, okay, we've gotten to a place where we're evaluating a 4-day work week, but we're in the kind of culture that's more focused on the individual performance versus the performance of a team. And how do I know that I'm not disproportionately impacting an individual by benefiting the team when I make this kind of change?
Yeah, such a great question. And I think that what you're doing at Emtrain is spot on, in that you're beta testing it. You're seeing how it goes. And that's where the most effective companies that I consult with, what they do is they will do a 3-month, a 1-quarter test, and they'll have each team develop what that looks like for them. So we're going to switch to a 4-day work week for this quarter. you with your team, with people that have similar roles, first discussion is what boundaries are we going to set around this? Are we taking Wednesdays off? Are we taking Fridays off? Are we going to, leave Thursday at noon and Friday at noon? So letting those individual teams of 3 to 6 people determine what works for them. Then set boundaries around that, and then say, what are we already being judged on? The key
Mm-hmm.
performance indicator of butts in the chair for 40 hours is no longer appropriate or even helpful. So what that someone sits there for 40 hours? We want to know, like, how is this team actually being judged? Is the sales team being judged on particular numbers? Are there specific areas in regards to customer satisfaction? What are the actual key performance indicators for each role? So being able to have that, and then each week to have a standing meeting where you quickly talk about those boundaries. How did it go? Did Jim from accounting send us all an email on Wednesday night, and half of us checked that email and we were prepared on Thursday morning, and everyone else, didn't because they were following the rules we set? Well, did we break the rules? Or maybe Jim gets some email from Europe that he needs to report out on Wednesday nights. So at 9 o'clock every Wednesday, now we're going to say our culture is that we all just check our emails from 9 to 9:15 every Wednesday. Okay, we're adjusting that culture and those expectations and
I love
boundaries as we go, because we're not machines. We're not the industrialists. We're not saying one size fits all. So you're adjusting as you go and changing. And then secondly, how do we do on our KPIs? Were our sales up? What did we do, and how do we keep doing that? Were they down? Were there things outside of our control or within our control? And then what can we do to address those? So then bringing that together, and each month bringing together a report, and at the end saying, here's what our recommendations are as a team. And then your team leaders can say, oh my gosh, look at all this qualitative data.
it.
Bobby, she got to see her son play baseball for the first time in 2 years and said, if I could do this every week, I'd stay at this company forever. Whoa, now we have a retention goal of
Yeah.
keeping quality people here. And what's the quantitative? What are the numbers? Where are numbers actually down? Do they go down 20% by us cutting our time? Or did it actually go up? And do we have some new creative and innovative products as a result of it?
Yeah, the qualitative data for me as the president of Emtrain was more impactful than anything I could have ever imagined. I think we are confident business leaders that we think we can drive this business from a top line, bottom line standpoint, but knowing that people are having a better experience here blew my mind. Just it revealed things that we never thought was happening. I had no idea that I had employees sitting under my nose who had never taken time with their family on a Friday. It continues to blow my mind. So we have a question here, and it's a big one because we struggled with this early on. And that's pay, right? If you're going to change the workday, do you change the pay period? Do you change the pay scale? Do you pay everyone on a 5-day work week if you're moving to a 4-day work week? The question in this case specifically is how does this work for hourly employees that are full time? And I think you should
Yeah.
also point on full time employees in general, because I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, no, I think that this is a really important question. And part of this is that we have models that are set up that perpetuate the 40-hour work week. And so in the same way that we would ask the question, well, if someone's working 7 days a week and we move them to a 40-hour work week, do we keep paying them the same? So we've gone through this transition before. I want to point to Kalamazoo Valley Community College. It's a small community college in Southwest Michigan. They switched to the 4-day work week in the summers, and they continue to pay their people for a 40-hour work week. And so they actually found that just in their building costs in air conditioning, they've saved over $4 million just in air conditioning costs alone. When they then look at health outcomes, they're a self-funded insurance community college. Their health outcomes are better, so they're saving money there. As well, their student success has gone up because students can come in, on a flexible schedule at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday because people are able to flex their schedules, and now they can get academic advising when in the past these, often single parents couldn't come in after 5 o'clock for things. They're seeing staff stay longer. So, you look at even just the training costs of staff. So when we just say, what about these hourly people? I think we miss a lot of the ancillary benefits of a 4-day work week in all those other factors. And so it may not be, it may not be exactly the same like a KVCC, but they at least show how when you do it as an experiment and look at things other than just the bottom line, you actually end up saving money in a number of different areas. So I would actually argue that keeping the salaries the same, even if you have a 32-hour week, will be in a company's best interest.
I love that, and let's stick to this because I think this is a Again, it was one of the most complex parts of the pilot for us, and we've made the decision to pay our employees for a 5-day work week, and that's actually worked out well for us. But let's double click on this a little bit and talk about those kind of businesses that are paid per hour or billable hours. Consulting firms in particular, we see a lot more firms popping up around health and wellness specifically, and things in supporting other businesses, professional services firms where it's billable hours. How do those kind of companies operate in a 4-day work week? I also asked, is there ever a time, are you hard nosed on you should never work on Fridays if you're on a 4-day work week, or are there exceptions to that rule for everyone?
Yeah, I think let me start with the last question first. I think having hard and soft boundaries for yourself. So to me, the 3-day weekend, it's a great hook for a book, but it doesn't have to be a Friday. It can be a Wednesday. It can be, half days on Thursdays. It can be that you do sprints where then you take 4 days off in a row. It's saying, is the 40-hour work week serving us the best that we can, or can we do better than that? So really starting that conversation to say we have diverse businesses and we can do experiments to try to think differently than how we've been taught by Henry Ford 100 years ago. So to your question about consulting companies, I work with therapists all the time, counselors, coaches that are billing hours for counseling, for coaching, oftentimes a lot of attorneys. People who have billable hours have given themselves a job, not a business. I mean, if you're sick, if your kid's sick, if you go on vacation, you don't make money. That's not a business. That's a job. Just like if you don't show up for your job, you don't get paid. Same sort of thing where you've set up a model for yourself that whether or not it's the 4-day work week, if you don't work, you don't get paid. And so I would actually argue that there is missed opportunity in so many of those situations. It can be, what are the e-courses that could help people before they're ready to work with you individually? So if you're a consultant, the people that are 6 months out from working with you, what's a self-paced e-course look like that you sell for $200, $2,000, $20,000, whatever it is, that you could automate and build some income there? What are add-on services or done-for-you services that you could have a back-end team do in addition to your consulting services that support the work that you're doing? Sure, you do this consulting, but could you have a team of 2 or 3 people that help implement things faster that you're paying, at a different rate than what you're charging? What are the services after people are done with you? What kind of follow-up, what kind of masterminds, what kind of membership communities could you have for the year after they do consulting with you? You could have something where individual businesses pay $1,000 or $10,000 a month to be a part of a high-level CEO group that offers value, offers continued services with you, but then maybe
Sure.
isn't as expensive as your consulting. And so I think we just have to think differently about the scalability of our businesses if we've backed ourselves in the corner to just do things that are fee-for-service hourly work.
Yeah, I in some ways agree with that, but I think there's also a way to not completely change your business model to say if you're working on billable hours, you own your time more than almost anyone else owns their time. So I think whether you decide that you're going to work Monday through Thursday or Thursday through Wednesday or whatever, I think that the 2 points you made about what work am I doing and when do I do the work is something that those who are working in those consulting firms need to think about. Whether it's a 40-hour work week, 30-hour work week, it's really about what days are you working and how are you using those times to best deliver your best product. Because I know from working with consulting firms my entire career and hiring them that if you do the best work, then I'm going to retain you and continue to retain you. And I think everyone who's ever worked in that kind of business knows that a retained client is the best client. So I think
Absolutely.
that, and a happy, a happy product is a good product. And so I think you make a really good point. We are almost at the top of the hour, or we are at the top of the hour. So Joe, like, we could rap for hours. Like, I
We
really
could. We
appreciate.
absolutely could. And I would love to come back if you want to.
Yeah, we would love to have you. Thank you so much for the time that you spend. Again, make sure that you check Joe out. Where can we tell folks to follow you, Joe, online?
Yeah, so joesanok.com is where you can find my website. We are sharing publicly experiments that people are doing around the 4-day work week. You can buy Thursday as the new Friday wherever you want, any bookstore that you can get a book at. And my final statement would be, we have so many challenges in front of us in the next 10 or 20 years, whether it's future pandemics, whether it's, different types of issues, global warming. And is pre-pandemic 2019 the best that we can do? Or do we need a more rested, innovative, and productive generation to address these huge challenges we have ahead of us? And I would argue that the 4-day work week is one of those potential solutions to have the best society to address the challenges we have in front of us.
I could not agree with you more, and I'm excited about the society that's in front of us. Let's keep working. Way to go, Joe. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right.